Hi. It's a bit of a chilly day, which is okay. I have my gloves on, and I actually, if you were watching an earlier video, I had a bit of an indecision when it came to gloves because I couldn't figure out if I should take the gloves on or leave the gloves off. I mean, gloves on's good because I'm warmer. Gloves off is good because I don't get chalk all over my gloves, which neither here nor there. But okay, my name's Bruce. This is my classroom in the forest. Thank you for joining. If you've been enjoying the stuff that shows up on this channel, great. If not, great. Either way, great. Uh, I and I spoke earlier, like ages ago, about the reason. You know what the heck's going on. The reason is it's a little tiny bit of a why not. I mean, there's no. I like to thank YouTube because they provide this venue. They do all the logistics. I mean, this did not exist in 1970. This did not exist in 1980. It did not exist a long time. I remember when I was in, it was 1976, Christmas of 1976. I was in school, and in my hometown, they had a thing called Christmas carols. It was a little 5 or 6 or something minute segment that would appear just before the news at 5 o'clock on television, or 5:30 or whatever time it was, and the local station put it on, and school classes would go to the television station and basically stand on what was bleachers, and then we would sing Christmas carols, and while the camera panned slowly across all the faces. That way, all the parents could tune in and see their son or daughter sing on television. It was like, wow. And now I did this. I remember in grade 6. I was completely fascinated with the whole deal. I mean, it was like, wow, there was cameras, and wow, there was lights, and wow. Anyway, that's a little bit of a compare and contrast between now, which can make these videos with relatively little equipment and such. It's not. I'm not very good at it, but it's not that hard. I mean, the reason why I'm not very good at it is because I'm not very good at it. I mean, there's people that are amazing. Dan Mace, geez, you watch Dan Mace. Watch that guy's videos. They're incredible. Okay, full on, and just astonishing. They're an exercise in. They're an example of cinema. But I'm me. Okay, all I got is me. And I want to talk briefly, about, and in a couple of videos ago, I had said to the world and to anyone who's watching, I said, look, I'm the happiest person within 100 meters of anywhere I'm standing. And I should mention that I'm not sure if that video, if I publish it, because sometimes I look at things and I go, geez, I don't know. That's one of those, geez, I don't know. Okay? It's a geez, I don't know. I don't know. But I did say in this venue that in past career and in general, I'm the happiest person within 100 meters of anywhere that I'm standing. Now, maybe that's hyperbole. Hyperbole is it's a literary word. It means just kind of an exaggeration for effect. So, if I'm standing in a crowd at a giant concert of 100,000 people, and surely there must be someone that's more happy than I am somewhere. but for my intents and purposes, that's it. And I'm going to go over here. Hello. Excuse me. I wanted to get my chalk. I talked about this little bucket before, and how it's kind of ridiculous that it's made of plastic and it's going to last forever, and it's a tiny bit embarrassing, but oh well, it's what we have for now. All right, now talking about this happiness idea, more than once in my life, more than once in the past year, more than once in the past month, I have people say to me, like strangers, who go, well, you're always so happy, or whatever, a projection of happiness. And it wasn't necessarily always the case, and and it's an exaggeration to say that, yeah, this is always the case. But here's the deal, is I'm going to talk about carpentry. Okay, carpentry. Finished carpentry. Okay, there's if you look inside your house and you look at the baseboard, or you look at the door, there's a door frame and such, and there's stuff called trim. Okay, trim. Now, there's 3 ways to join trim. There's more than 3 really, but we're going to talk about the 3 main ways. Way number 1. Way number 1. You have this board and you have this board, and they have to be somehow put together. So you just go boof, you push them together, and you call it finished. Okay, a butt joints. I think it comes from the word abutment, but they just go together. Okay, that's way number 1. Way number 2 is maybe a little bit fancier. You're going to get your angulating, reciprocating, thing called a chop saw or a miter saw, whatever. You're going to make things called miter cuts, miter boards. You're going to cut this board at an angle. You're going to cut this board at an angle, and you go, there you go, put them together, and it looks nicer. It's tighter. It's cleaner. It's good. It's way number 2. Now remember, I'm talking about happiness. Okay. Okay. Way number 3. Way number 3. Way number 3. And if you've really been following these videos, you'll know that I like to talk about a person. I like to talk about things. I like to talk about economics. Okay, believe it or not, we're going to hit all that. Okay, so the thing I'm talking about is this idea of carpentry. Okay, joinery, putting things together. And I said there's 3 ways. Really, there's more than 3 ways, but for the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to stick with the idea of 3 ways. I mentioned there's the butt, there's the miter, and then there's this other way. This other way, and you're going to use, the other way, you might use a saw, a special kind of saw. I'm going to draw this saw. I'm going to try to. You've been following, you know my drawings. But the saw is like this. This here is a handle. This is, we'll call this, the frame. Maybe not. And this, right here, this is the blade. Okay. The blade. See now, I've gotten chalk on my hands. And my gloves. I mean, it's either way, it's fine. But if I get chalk on my gloves, then they don't feel, new anymore. And they're not terribly expensive gloves, but they're my gloves, and I'm kind of proud of my gloves. They're like the gloves are ideal. They're ideal for they're the Goldilocks gloves. They're not too hot, they're not too warm, they're not too cold. They're right in the middle, and that's a trait that that might have something to do with what I'm talking about here. Might be related. Okay, but now I drew this thing. Okay, we're talking about happiness, and we're talking about carpentry. We're talking about joinery. We're talking about finished carpentry. Now this thing here, this is called a coping saw. Coping saw. Okay, and what this saw blade, it's bendy. This thing's bendy, and you can cut in follow a shape. Okay, so if you look at over here, this is I'm going to draw a profile of a piece of wood. Okay, now this is the end-on view of some trim that might be in your house. So what this saw has to do with anything is you have to join 2 of these things together in a corner. So like I said, there's the butt way, as you can imagine. If this is the shape of your thing you're trying to join, that just butting it up is going to be not as beautiful as you'd like it to be. Mitering it, well, that's an idea. That might work. That's pretty good. And this third way is coping. coping. Okay, coping. So coping means that you take this saw and then you cut the shape of one board so that it's going to meld in nicely with the other board, and then it's going to fit beautifully. Okay, now what does this have to do with anything? Well, I was talking about happiness. The saw is called coping. Okay, so coping. It's a carpentry term, but it's a term from life also. It's something that we do. We cope with our struggles. We cope with our problems. We help other people cope with their struggles and problems. Okay. So, and as we get older, we develop different sort of internalized techniques that we use to help us cope with our problems. So that's why if you're a small child, if you have a small child, then this child's capacity to cope with the problems of the world is this size, and so you want to, as an adult, you want to take the big problems and just make them little, okay, so that they can fit inside this thing. Okay. An example of this might be if you've ever seen the movie Life is Beautiful, La Vita Bella, with Roberto Benigni. It's a beautiful movie. I think it won Best Picture, deservedly, the Oscars, the Academy Awards. And you could say that movie is about coping, okay? Because the characters were placed in a grotesque situation. It was awful, right? So the Roberto Benigni character, he developed a mechanism, a technique to make horribleness joyful and to make things into a game, so it was able to cope. Okay, so at the beginning of this video, I mentioned about, talking a little tiny bit about me, but someone says, well, this idea about being the happiest person around, coping. I'll tell you something. Well, the whole thing is me kind of talking, but whatever. And if you want to make your own video, you talk and go ahead. I mean, like I said, there's no barriers to entry here, really. You can use your phone, you can do whatever you want. But you can borrow a phone, even better. All right, coping. Now, this is what I do. I leave my house. I've made a decision that I'm going to be happy, okay? I have a smile on my face. It's kind of my default position. 30 years ago or something, I was working as a waiter, and one of my coworkers said, the busier and crazier it gets, the bigger your smile gets. And I'm like, what are you going to do? So, coping. Okay, I said I leave my house, and I've decided I'm happy. Okay, I walk on the street. I have a smile on my face. Now, if you see me and I don't have a smile on my face, it's like we're not. None of us are perfect, right? But I'm sharing this with you. I've decided I'm happy. Then I go somewhere. I go for coffee. That's the metaphorical of going somewhere. But I go to the hardware store, or I go to the clothing store. I go to the bike shop. I'm kind of addicted to going to bike shops. And if you know me really, really well, you know that I'm also addicted to going to camera stores. That's an addiction I'd like to fix. I don't think there's I've been working on it for 50 years. I don't think there's a fix for that. But anyway, so I go somewhere, anywhere, right? And I look around and I go, wow, this is amazing. This place is really nice. As every place is really nice. If you're there, it's nice. So I just decide this is really nice. And then as an aside, here's a hint, I say that out loud. I say, wow, this place is really nice. This place is really nice. Wow. Not too much, but there's a point. And what happens is the people that I'm interacting with, they're suddenly a little bit less worried, maybe concerned. They're stressed. Take the stress level, bring it down. Now, I have an example in my life where I've not done this. I've brought the wrong mindset to the game, and it's not gone well. But Anyway, this is it. So I go to happiness. Okay, it's coping, a coping mechanism. It's a coping mechanism to achieve joy. And what does this have to do with economics? It's because as a human being, as an individual in society, as an individual within the economy, our job is to be happy, to maintain joy, to maximize utility, to be joyful. So here's I'm sharing it with you. This is something that I do. I don't even consciously do it. I don't, I mean, I've made it. I've automated this whole thing over the past 50 years. Okay, automated happiness. So I walk in, I'm happy, coping, okay. Coping the saw. And the reason I'm using this example of coping and the saw is because what I'm doing is I'm allowing myself to be malleable, to bend to the situation, okay? Bend to the circumstance, bend to the people that are around me. Now, I didn't say yield. Bend. Because every situation and every person that you meet is going to be a little tiny bit different. And if you can be malleable, if you can be flexible, if you can be, happy, then that's helpful. Okay. Now, in my professional career, I'll share one example. I mean, I used to be a professional example sharer. That was that was a job. I had that as a job. But I'll share one example. Here's an example: is I was working for a client through my firm. My job was to close down a factory in Oklahoma. It was a big factory. That was my job. And we're going to move the production of that factory from Oklahoma to Illinois. There you go. So, and we had a private jet, like a Lear jet fly around stuff. But one day we had to get from this place to this other place. I can't even remember where exactly. I think we had to get back to Chicago, but so we're flying on commercial, like regular ticket flight. Now this is like 30 years ago, so yeah. And for whatever reason, they weren't going to let us on the flight that was direct, and we were going to have to go from where we were, I think Tulsa, to some other town to Atlanta, and then wait there for 6 or 8 hours, and then fly to Chicago, and the whole thing was going to take like 15 hours or something like that. But at the same time, there was a direct flight that was leaving in a half hour, and my clients wanted to be on that flight, and the people were not. It wasn't going in the direction they thought. I was like, okay, I'm good at this. Let's see what happens. So I have some rules, right, that I've learned through the years, and I apply them. Rule number 1, don't embarrass anybody. It's just not good, okay? Yelling, just don't do that, okay? Rule number 1, do not embarrass anybody, okay? That's it. So how do you do that? What you do is you want to make sure that you're speaking with the person that has the authority to help in your situation, right? Like someone that has the power to say yes. So I kind of looked around, I figured it out. I managed to, I think, have the person I was speaking with invite this other person over, whatever. And then now the person in authority, see, there's the counter person. They did not have the authority to grant my wish, but this other person did. But the counter person he was their boss or supervisor or whatever. So one of the jobs of a supervisor is to support the employees. Okay, support the employees. So the guy can't just undermine their power and authority by doing something contrary to what they had said. Okay, so what I do, I have to move the person in power away from the situation. So I kind of just, I didn't say, oh, come here. I didn't, none of that. I just kept moving the conversation, moving, talking away, moving, getting like a few inches, a couple of feet, a few inches. We're talking about the weather. We're talking about the football. We're talking about anything. Eventually, I've got like 30 feet between me and this guy in the counter. All right. Now, so I just said, quietly said, listen, I don't want to I don't want to put you in a bad position, and I don't want to have you undermine it. I acknowledge that this guy has all these problems, and then explain that, we have this desire and problem, and we're full fare tickets. So eventually, I mean, like 2 or 3 minutes, I was like, okay, we'll do this just quietly. Yeah, all right. So I got my clients. Come on. We all got on the plane, went home. And so my client said, well, what happened there? And how did that work out? So I said, I don't know. I'm happy. You're happy. I'm happy. Everybody's happy. So anyway, this whole video, maybe it's a bit long. I'm guilty of that. But carpentry, butting, but. That doesn't sound good. When you're looking for happiness, butting is not good. Mitering, shaving a little bit off both sides, bringing it together, it's better than butting. The real success, the key to happiness, coping. Okay? Coping. And coping in carpentry, coping in life, and bending to the situation, being flexible and malleable, that is a recipe for success. And if you can do that, I think your life will be a little bit happier. And I don't pretend to be like the world's expert of everything, but but there's no one preventing me from making this video. So there you go. Thank you, YouTube. My name's Bruce. This is my channel. If you find this stuff at all useful, please subscribe. If you don't want to subscribe anyway. I mean, I can, have my goal is to get maybe 100 subscribers. That'd be sort of, I don't have a goal. My goal really is happiness, but I'm there. Okay, in the broader context, I am. Okay, so that's it. Anyway, thank you very much for being here so far. Hope you're kind enough to join me in the next one, or go back on some of the other ones. Have a nice day.